our series, a series from the Philippines. Today we're gonna. I plead with Yuda and plead with Sanich to agree with each other in the Lord. Yes, I ask you, royal yoke fellow, help these women who have contended at my side in the cause of the gospel, along with Clement and the rest of my fellow workers, whose names are in the book of life. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again. Rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition with thanksgiving. Present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. This is the word of God to the people of God. Thanks be to God. Amen. God of mercy, hear our prayers as we invoke your power in presence right now. We yearn to hear from you because we are hungry and await to be fed spiritually by you. Use me as your mouthpiece, as you've done always. You are the potter and I am the clay. Touch my clay lips with your divine fire. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight. O Lord, you are my rock and my redeemer. Amen. Amen. So it has been this journey that we have been in. I don't know whether somebody got something, but I hope you did. Because the letter to the Philippians is a very good letter, like I said in the beginning. So the congregation can agree with me that it has been a blessing, joy, and also a learning experience as we have been studying together. Remember truly, remember always. Have you been pondering on never giving up, even though whatever it is, never to give up? Pressing on toward the goal, like I said last week. So this morning, we are talking it on a higher level. In between all that happens, Paul is saying, rejoice. And I was thinking of the song that we used to sing growing up. And this is the song. Rejoice in the Lord. I say 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 rejoice. You know, when you want just to feel good, you can sing this song. I'm telling you, because it can be so stormy. But in the middle of the storm, you can sing the song. So one would also say in that same song, again and again. So again and again, I say rejoice in the Lord. Again and again, I say rejoice. And the question is, indeed, one would ask, rejoicing in the Lord in this situation? Are you understanding what I'm saying? How can I rejoice in this situation when I have a financial challenge? How can I rejoice in the Lord when life has pulled me apart? It can do that. It can just tear you apart like that. And you are trying to tell people what you are going through. Those who are near and those who are far. They don't understand your situation. Some might, that's a blessing. But the question is, how can I rejoice in the Lord when God seems to be far away from me? God seems to be far away. And we are calling upon the God of your fathers, the God of the United Church of Benninton, this God has been here, ancient of days. You call upon him, and there's no sound, there's no voice. And you say, what? Paul, are you okay to say, I have to rejoice in the Lord? When life is like this, the voice within the entire sermon this morning is echoing the same statement. Like I was singing, rejoice in the Lord. I say again, rejoice. What is Paul talking about? Rejoice in the Lord at all times, meaning the different seasons of life. The winter season comes. The season, when I say winter, I mean the winter seasons of our lives. There can be a winter season. It can be so stormy. But the word is rejoice in the Lord. I will say again, rejoice. It can be a spring. Who doesn't love spring? Oh my God, the greenery. And you can still rejoice. You can get into a hot summer of life. You can still rejoice. You can get into an autumn of life. That's my season, but it's short-lived. I don't like the other side when it gets, the trees are bare, barren trees, and now we are awaiting the fall, the falling back of time, and at the same time, the dark mornings and the dark nights. The deers are everywhere. That time, we still have to rejoice. So he says, the Lord is near, we have to rejoice. Another version, which is the Amplified, puts it this way. Rejoice in the Lord always, delight, gladden yourselves in him. Again I say, rejoice. Let all men know and perceive and recognize your unselfishness, your considerateness, your forbearing spirit. The Lord is near. He is coming soon. That's why we have to rejoice. Paul said before the Philippians two qualities, great qualities of Christian life. What are they? To rejoice in the Lord at all times, meaning in his mind, he was thinking of the negative side of life. He was thinking of the positive side. Life can put us in what I call the in-between time. The time of joy, the time of struggle, the time of healing, the time of sickness. You can be in that side. And there, what was coming in his mind, what flashed in his mind were the trials and the tribulations. He was laying in a prison cell, awaiting death. This was just right there. And he knew he was going to die. It prolonged, but it was going to happen. What did he do for him to deserve death? For preaching the gospel. So even though all the negatives surrounded him, he repeated the same word, rejoice in the Lord. The Philippian church, they were waiting for him. They thought, well, our apostle was coming. It's like each one of us. Somebody is in the hospital. And we say, Mama is coming home. But the doctors are not releasing that person. They are in there. It's like some of us, when we know they are going through radiation, and we are believing radiation will do it, that's in between time. We don't know the outcome. But even though we are not aware of the outcome, Paul is encouraging himself. He is encouraging his audience and is telling them to delight or to rejoice in the Lord. Saints, Christian joy is independent of all things on earth. This is just independent. Because Christ is in us. Happiness is short-lived. You know, this morning I was happy. Very happy. Why? I was driving on I-18 there. I got there on time. I came here on time. I'm happy. I made it. But it's not going to be like that always. One day the roads will not be friendly with me. You know that? The roads won't be friendly. And somebody will be checking, where is she? What happened? Happiness short-lived. But regardless of that, does it take away the joy of serving the Lord? No. I love it. The trenches are good. I will be sitting somewhere or somebody will be doing something. But here primarily, happiness is outward emotion. It's an outward emotional reaction to a pleasant circumstance or circumstance. Joy is deeper, inner characteristic that continues to exist regardless of the unpleasant situations. And its purpose all the time. The purpose of joy is for us to go to sustain us through those difficult times. When I lost my mother, my mom was a friend. I thought the whole world had come upon me. That morning, I remember it. I said, what? My mother? Are you kidding? And it was prolonged grief. But within that, there is joy. The joy of the Lord is our strength. That's why Jesus said to us, blessed are you when people revel and persecute you and say all kinds of evil against you falsely by my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Somebody was before you. Some people say negative things left, right, and center. They are blessed to say that. You know? But regardless of what is going on in our workplaces, regardless of what our neighbors think, regardless of the family challenges, Jesus is saying we are blessed. And Paul is saying you have to rejoice. Just rejoice in the Lord. So church, we all experience these trials, difficulties, and problems of life that make us weary. Have you ever been weary? Where you just say, I'm tired. You have tried and tried and tried again. Things are not working. You have tried to be nice to people. They don't see it. You have tried to work hard and things are not coming together. You have tried even to love your enemies and they still hate you more. So you get weary. I am weary. I'm tired. Some might say, I am so disappointed. Feelings of hopelessness and discouragement. Things are just discouraging. One thing after another. I heard somebody who was saying, this has not been my year. I said, which is your year? The past years or the upcoming years? Which we don't know. That's for God. And she said, I don't know, but this has been a bad year for me. From January to where we are, it has been so bad. One thing after another. But regardless of what I'm saying now, things happening one thing after another, we still have to just rejoice in the Lord. Rejoicing. Some of us get discouraged to the point of saying, well, I wish the sun will not rise. But the sun will always rise. That's a covenant between God and the sun. The night will always come. That's a covenant between the night and God. Regardless of what is happening, life can be so bitter. And Paul says, rejoice in the Lord always. But how is that possible? Indeed, it's a good question. So there's a spiritual response. We can rejoice in the Lord as long as we have Jesus within our hearts. As long as Jesus is with us, we rejoice. We sing songs. A couple in St. Louis, I used to go to this women's group conference, and I met this wonderful Kenyan pastor and her husband. They are in ministry. But you know, things happened unexpectedly. They lost a son through suicide. So my cousin sister who lives in Illinois and I last Saturday were talking. So she said, well, I'm still here at the home of this pastor, of this couple who lost their son. The story is that he was just refusing to go to school. Just refusing from nowhere. He was in third year, just refusing this semester to go back. So that particular day, the daddy said, okay, before you leave for school, let's renew your license. So they were at church. They came home. The son said, Dad, I want to pick something in the house. So the daddy was in the driveway. The car is on and is waiting for him there. The son got inside the house, went into the other bedroom, took his daddy's prayer shawl, and just committed suicide in there. So the dad is saying, what's going on with him? You know how agitated we can become when somebody's delaying. And he said, let me just get in there and just yell at him. Come out, you have to go. He looked around everywhere. He could not find his son. What happened? He just got in here. It's a true story. He was buried last week. So what happened to him? What really happened? So later on, he started opening the closets, only to find him right there. The moment he opened it, boom, he was gone. Can you imagine that? Very sad, isn't it? So I was consoling the mom because I didn't want to say a lot of words. I didn't know how to present it. And she was the one who was talking to me instead of me talking to her. She's still in a denial stage. You know how grief is. Denying that it happened. And she goes, God is in control. I'll still serve him. God is faithful. I'll still serve him. The previous day, she had buried a son, 21 years old, who was about to finish college. Things happen. But we still move on. I just said a very short prayer. At times, we are not supposed to say a lot of things when people are going through tough times. We have to discern and ask God on what to say. This is the story that happened. And when I was working on this, I thought about them. I said, wow, how can somebody rejoice when such things happen? Yesterday, the previous day, he was just lying on his mom's lap, reading the Bible with her, praying with her. Anything, any problem? No, Mama, fine. So the person is, what happened in between? But the mother is saying, I will rejoice, like Paul is saying. At one time, Paul was in jail with Silas. And instead of them complaining and blaming in that situation, they started just to rejoice. They started just to sing songs. One would assume they were singing Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. One would just say and think maybe they were singing, what a friend we have in Jesus. Well, they were under chains. Paul also helps us to understand what he meant by rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulations, continuing steadfastly in prayer. Prayer does it all. No matter what happens to us in this Christian life, we have to rejoice in that hope. Didn't Jesus say, for great is your reward in heaven? Listen to what Charles Wesley said. Rejoice in glorious hope. Our Lord, the righteous judge, shall come and take his servants up to their eternal home. Lift up your hearts. Lift up your voice. Rejoice again. I say rejoice. So we learn that. Life situations are beyond our human control. At times, there are things that we can't control. But what we can only do is to rejoice in the Lord. As long as Jesus is with us, we are fine. That's what I used to think. But it was a short-lived happiness. As long as my parents are there, and I tell people, what you are doing to me, I'm going to tell my dad. And when my daddy comes, you're going to face the consequences. But that was short-lived. My dad is no longer there. But Jesus is always there. The Holy Spirit is always there. So we will be all right. And that family that I mentioned in this sermon, they'll be all right. As long as Jesus is there. Just remember this. Happiness is short-lived. Well, joy sustains us in our problems and all our life situations. Rejoicing in our life situations changes the atmosphere. Well, the opposite remains true. If we stand rejoicing in the Lord always, we will be encouraged, sustained, and stay focused to the end and let our gentleness be known to all men. Be characterized by prayer and anxiety. Have the peace of God within our hearts. You know what, church? As we begin the week, as we are also coming to the end of the month, the 9th month of this year, 2018, let us just rejoice in the Lord. I don't know what you might be going through, but as you begin the week, just say, I will rejoice in the Lord. When you are doing your dishes, when you are doing your laundry, when you are just working around the yard or in the farm, wherever, whatever, even myself driving or doing whatever, just remember this and say it loud. I will rejoice in the Lord always. Therefore, I say to you, rejoice in the Lord always. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. 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 It's our invitation at this time. If you want to be baptized, if you want to receive your Jesus as your personal Savior, if you want to serve in this church,